Hello. So in order to talk about this topic, there needs to be some sort of basic understanding of how at least I see reality. You may or may not agree, I don't really care, but if you want to understand what I'm talking about, I have to explain how I see things. So to me, there is an all-creative consciousness that is dreaming this reality. So you are a character in this dream. You are therefore not real. You are an illusion, just like when you dream and when you sleep and you're dreaming and there's many, many characters and many scenarios. Those are all illusions, right? They all disappear as soon as you wake up. At the same time, every single thing you encounter in your sleeping dreams come from your psyche. So you are everything in your dream. You are responsible for everything in your dream. And you most likely identify with a central character. And that central character you think of as you in the dream, and you think you're real, right? But every other character you encounter, whatever conversations you have, whatever happens, that all comes from your psyche, right? So you're actually, in fact, everything. Even if you only identify as one thing, you are everything, including like every single leaf in a bush, walking down the street of your dream. Those leaves come from your brain, right? So similarly, the all-creative consciousness that is dreaming this reality, of which you are most likely, to you, the central character, to you, you feel like the central character, right? So to you, you're the central character in this dream. Still, it's an illusion. And still, you are just a character in the dream of the all-creative consciousness who is dreaming everything. And in that regard, every single leaf you see walking down the street in this waking dream comes from the consciousness of the all-creative consciousness, comes from the psyche of the all-creative consciousness, the imagination of that energy, that consciousness, that creative idea generating energy is very hard to describe. So if that's the case, if you are just the main character in the dream of a larger consciousness, then what is going on? What is the point of this dream? Why is that all creative consciousness dreaming? In my opinion, the all creative consciousness is dreaming in order to have experiences and to play with itself. So we are playing right now. This is play. It's a game. And therefore, why is there such a thing as psychic attack? What is psychic attack? What is psychic warfare? Many people don't realize that they are part of a larger consciousness that is dreaming. So you can call those people asleep. A lot of people do. They just think they're real, right? They just think they're real, and they think of reality as some sort of like static thing. And like they're going to be born and they're going to die and this world will go on without them, blah, blah, blah. Whereas when you dream, if the main character view is not present in the dream, does that aspect of the dream continue to exist without your consciousness? I'll say that again. If you're dreaming in your sleep and you walk into a room, now the room exists, right? In your dream, now the room exists. When you exit the room, does that room continue to exist in your dream? I'm going to say no. It exists when you're present. It ceases to exist when you're not present, when you're not conscious about it. That's actually how I see this reality, this other dream, this waking dream, this dream of the larger creative consciousness of which we are just characters. So things don't exist unless you're conscious and present to it. Many people cannot even comprehend this. It is just beyond their comprehension. They might even go against it, right? Because it freaks them out too much. If you understand this premise, then you can start to understand what psychic attack is and what psychic warfare is. So you have to understand that you are creating your reality, and how you're creating your reality are the vibrations you have inside of your shadow. So let's just say you're real and you go to bed with a lot of worries. What kind of dream are you going to have? You're probably going to have some sort of bad dream or a nightmare, right? And it's going to be reflective of your worries. I mean, I think this is obvious. So right now, the all creative consciousness is dreaming, and it's up to you if you want to have a good dream or a bad dream. It's up to you, because the all creative consciousness is just playing with vibrations. So what kind of vibrations do you want to taste right now? You're dreaming. You're dreaming right now. So what kind of vibrations do you want to taste? And some people are actually fine having nightmares every single night. I mean, there are literally many people who have nightmares every single night. They just take it to be a part of their reality. They don't go to therapy for it. They don't try to heal anything. And they just accept that that is how life is. They don't see anything wrong with it. So that shows me that they're fine with fear. They just want to taste fear in this lifetime. That's fine. The all creative consciousness wants to taste everything. So, fear is a part of that. Most likely though, if you're watching this video, you don't want to just be stuck in fear. Like, you're probably over that. Whether or not you have control over that is another issue, but you're probably egotistically over tasting fear again and again and again and again. So to me, the idea of you, the character of you in this dream, is the perfection. Like, this whole dream is to describe you. So you're a human, right? So if you're a human, there has to be the idea of humans. There has to be the idea of animals. There has to be the idea of any other kind of species to refer animals and humans against. So there has to be plants. There has to be biology and like cells and like cellular biology and all kinds of things to help describe a human. So you are an idea. The all creative consciousness is expressing an idea, which is you. So you are the perfection. You are the perfection, and everything that you see around you helps to describe you, just like when you're dreaming a dream in your sleep. Whatever happens helps to move the story along of whatever that is, right? And sometimes the story changes left and right. Sometimes your sister turns into your mom and suddenly you're in high school again, and you just kind of like go with it, right? But the thing that remains the same is probably a feeling, right? The feeling usually doesn't radically change. The exterior surface level of things often changes, right? It's just amorphously weird stuff happens, but the feeling remains the same. So that's what I mean. There's an idea of you. You are the perfect thing. And everything you see in this reality just helps to describe you. So what kind of vibration do you want to play with? That's the big question. So let's just say that you're an idea and you're perfect, and everything in this reality just helps describe you. Do you know who you are? Most people don't know who they are, right? They're just on autopilot. If you don't know who you are and you don't realize that you are dreaming, you're really screwed. You might realize that you're dreaming, but still not know who you are. Then you're also screwed, because if you don't know who you are, then you don't know what your boundaries are. And this is a big, big deal. So when you don't know what your boundaries are, you're easy to psychically attack. Because remember, we're playing. This reality is play. You are holding a vibration that the all creative consciousness just wants to experience. So if you don't know what your boundaries are, it's really, really easy to psychically attack you, because basically anytime you're outside of your boundaries, you're under psychic attack. Anytime you're outside of your boundaries, you're under psychic attack. And you know what's fascinating about this is so many people think they know what their boundaries are, but you have two sets of boundaries. You have the boundaries of your true self, like the actual idea of you that the all creative consciousness is dreaming. And you have the boundaries of your ego, which is not you at all. Oftentimes it's the polar opposite of you. So many times people want to defend their boundaries and think they know what their boundaries are, but they're confused and they're defending the boundaries of their ego, which is their false self. So they're actually being evil unto themselves because they are violating their real selves with their false self. So let's say you're Mormon, right? That's your ego. That's obviously your ego. You're Mormon and you're vegan. You're a vegan Mormon, okay? That's ego, 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 ego. You'll probably be really offended if someone tries to convince you that something you believe or you're doing is wrong. Like Mormonism is wrong, veganism is wrong. You'll be really upset, right? So you're like, oh, you violated my boundaries. You know, what you just told me, you violated my boundaries. This rule you have violates my boundaries. Those aren't your real boundaries. Those are the boundaries of your ego. So do you see, if you get really lost in your ego, you don't even know who you are and you don't know what your real boundaries are. So if you're really stuck in your ego like this, then it's really easy to psychically attack you, because here you are defending your ego's boundaries with your dear life. But at the same time, your true self is being attacked left and right, and you can't tell. You're actually party to the attack. So many people are evil unto themselves without realizing, which is so interesting. So to me, the original sin is shame. Self-hatred is the original sin. And egos are formed out of self-hatred. So when you're little and you're a baby, you cry when you're unhappy, right? And you want something, you just go for it. You don't go, wait, will I be rejected if I go for it? Will I be rejected if I express I have a need? Once you start forming an ego, you start to be conscious of your social condition, and you start to become conscious of whether or not you're going to be socially rejected or not. So the thing that makes you have an ego is self-hatred. Any Western person has some level of self-hatred. Isn't that interesting, right? Isn't it interesting that almost any Western person has a difficulty loving themselves? And even if they go, no, I did a lot of work on myself, I love myself, it's usually not true. It's usually not true because you can tell because of their vibration, how much they're in their minds, how much they're living life through magic, da 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 da. It's just not true. So in this dream in which you are perfect, do you love yourself? Because if you don't, you're going to have an ego and all the entities come in and start to psychically attack you. So what does psychic attack look like? What is psychic warfare under these circumstances? To me, the AllCreative Consciousness just wants to look at itself. It's just playing, it's just looking at itself, right? And I think that's why we're so drawn to things that are beautiful, like that have what feels like a greater truth behind it, you know, a beautiful statue or a beautiful, like, you know, like math being like perfect or whatever, music, physical beauty, you know, like sometimes people will say something, it just hits home, you know, it just feels true. Even if there's not that much reason attached, it just feels true. So there's like a vibration of the AllCreative Consciousness throughout all of this, of which is just looking at itself again and again and again and again and again. And in order to look at itself, it needs to describe a lot of things. And a lot of these things are trying to convince you that you're not you. So if you're born and you're perfectly fine, but then you're taught that you're not okay, so you start to have shame and an ego, then your whole life you're going to be this false thing. And whether you know it or not, you're on a journey back to your true self again, whether you know it or not. And if you don't know what your true self is, then you don't know what your boundaries are, and the whole time you're under psychic attack. So psychic attack happens when you're outside of your boundaries, outside of your true self's boundaries. So you're going to feel guilt, shame, fear, anger, and sadness. You're going to feel those things. So if you feel even a little bit of any of those things, that means you're under psychic attack, which means almost everyone is under psychic attack almost 100% of the time, right? And that's why almost all Western people have had some kind of trauma in childhood. I think it's part of the game. I think it's part of the game that you're born perfect and then you're told you're not perfect. And then you spend your whole life trying to like be perfect again, even though you kind of secretly hate yourself. Right? It's so weird. So how can the AllCreative Consciousness see itself all over again? It needs to divorce itself from itself and find itself all over again. That's what it's doing. That's the game. That's why we have things like psychic attack. That's why we have things like psychic warfare. So psychic attack is a bad feeling. Psychic attack is when you feel weird. Oftentimes, psychic attack makes you confused. So have you ever had a period in your life, and you might be in this period right now, where you're so confused and you feel stupid and you can't make a decision, you know, and maybe you have a higher IQ than you're able to express in the moment, you know, something like that. You've probably seen your friends like this, where they're really stupid and they're so confused about a particular situation that even when you talk truth to them, they deny it. You know, they just can't handle the truth. So they just hide under the covers. I think you know what I'm talking about. So that is the AllCreative Consciousness losing itself. And the idea is to find itself again. How do you find yourself again? You have to know who you are, what your true vibration is, and defend those boundaries with your life. That is psychic warfare. So psychic warfare is really interesting. It just permeates all of your life. Are you trying to get to the bus on time and something happens where it just like eats up all of your time in a stupid way, and now you miss the bus. And now that you miss the bus, you have a lot of stress. That was an attack. Yes, that was an attack. Does someone ever waste your time talking about stupid stuff? Do they tell the same story again and again and again? Do you ever kind of like feel your energy points leaving your body? That's all psychic attack. Anytime you're outside of your boundaries, you're under psychic attack. So imagine a flower. A flower is perfect, right? A very healthy flower is going to have perfect symmetry. It's going to be very healthy, and it's going to be perfect. The flower will embody perfection. But if the flower hates itself, what's it going to look like? If the flower hates itself and has shame, how much nutrition will it take from the soil? This is what I mean. Shame is the first original sin. Like, shame is the first psychic attack. When you receive shame, which almost all humans do between the ages of 3 and 7, you start to form your ego and you start to hate yourself. And then you start your journey, losing yourself to find yourself again. I don't really see that much wrong with childhood trauma in this regard. Obviously, it's wrong, right? But it gives us a story. And how can the universal consciousness find itself again if it doesn't lose itself first? How do you lose yourself? Self-hatred. Self-hatred is almost like the stupidest thing you could ever think of. Like a flower who hates itself, where does that come from? Like, how does that serve anything, right? It keeps the flower from expressing its true purpose, and it keeps the flower from expressing beauty, from expressing truth, from expressing that vibration that it inherently has that reflects the AllCreative Consciousness. So when you feel shame, you're just as like retarded seeming as a flower who hates itself. There's no reason to feel shame. Shame is not a true feeling, in my opinion. Shame is pure psychic attack. So if you feel any kind of shame whatsoever, which most people do, don't believe it. Easier said than done, but you have to not believe it, because after you feel shame, then your ego starts to agree with all the other psychic attack. And that's when, you know, you start to go on a healing journey, because the vibration you have in your shadow starts to create this reality. Remember, you're dreaming. And remember, when you go to bed with worries, you're going to have a nightmare. So right now, if you have a strong ego and you believe your life should be shit, you're going to dream a life that is shit. And it's going to be everything from the shitty feeling you feel like all the time, to the shitty text messages that people send you that psychically attack you, the shitty things that people say to you. Even random strangers will say randomly bad things to you. You're going to have bad relationships with people that you're supposed to trust, but they're going to be untrustworthy. And the very fabric of this reality is going to reflect back to you a shitty, shitty, shitty life, because you're dreaming it. And reality is not static. It just reflects the vibrations in your shadow. So in order to have good vibrations in your shadow, you need to defend your boundaries with your life. Your shadow reflects everything that you don't want to pay attention to. So if you have really, really bad boundaries, Maybe you defend your ego's boundaries. Maybe you're like a militant vegan Mormon, right? So you defend that to its life, to the end of your life, but you're not defending your true self's boundaries at all. Your life will reflect the shittiness of that. You know, what's really interesting is a lot of people are really happy to crusade for things outside of themselves. They're happy to crusade for, in this dream, by the way. So you're dreaming, and you're dreaming in your dream, you're defending against, animal cruelty, or you're defending against, the idea of even wages for certain kinds of people. You're happy to crusade for something outside of yourself. It's really hard to crusade for yourself because you just don't believe in yourself. You just don't think you're worth it. You don't think you have value. So the all creative consciousness, that is perfection, right? How can it play with itself? It needs to have some sort of game where it completely devalues itself, and not just from the outside, from the inside. So you hating yourself is the inner enemy. And then you hating yourself, creating an exterior enemy where your life is shitty, that's the exterior enemy. So you're playing this game on many different levels. I think it's really interesting. But the key is really easy. You just need to not feel shame. I know it's easier said than done, but you need to not feel shame, because when you do, you'll feel what your true self is. You'll feel what your value is. And when you feel that, it's going to be really easy to defend the boundaries of your true self. But if you don't even know who you are, all you're going to think is you're a vegan Mormon, and you're just going to go through life really, 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 really asleep to who you are and how good it can feel to be alive. So just remember that this reality is a dream. You're dreaming it, and you're not even dreaming it. The all creative consciousness is dreaming it, and you're just a character. So the flavor of dream you want to have, the flavor of life you want to live, depends on the vibrations in your shadow. And if you like to live in a nightmare, you will. And that's fine. It's your choice, because the all creative consciousness wants to experience everything. And the all creative consciousness is fundamentally safe. So it doesn't care if you are living a nightmare. It's okay with that. And you are definitely okay with that if you are making that choice. So to me, if you want to have, let's say, a good life, a pleasant life, if you want to know what your boundaries are, then you have to understand who you are and your one specific frequency. You're one Dorito chip flavor. You are one ice cream flavor. You have a true self. It's going to feel really good when you defend the boundaries of your true self. And when you do that, believe me, all the vibrations in your shadow will fall in line. Your life will be more magical. You'll have a higher vibration, and you'll be healed, in quotation marks. But what really is happening is you're gaining mastery over the vibrations you're playing with in this dream. You're just being a little bit more conscious. So your dream is more pleasant. And honestly, it doesn't really matter if you have a pleasant or unpleasant dream, because all creative consciousness wants to experience everything. So it's more like choose your own adventure. Even if you choose, like, let's say, a pleasant adventure this time around, you've chosen every other adventure every other single time around. So there's no good or bad, right or wrong. It's just the feeling of making a choice, pretty much. So honestly, I have no idea how much sense it's made to people. If you've made it through this point, hopefully made some kind of sense to you. And I'll just say one more thing. If you want to find your true self, you have to listen to your intuition. If you want to listen to your intuition, you can't have any shame. Shame kills your intuition. Thinking kills your intuition. So those are some separate subjects. But yeah, that is what life is about. You are always undergoing psychic warfare. And the reason for that is this dream is always trying to get you to make the choice of you. Okay, I'll say one more thing. I was closing up, but I'll say one more thing. It can even be to the point where, like, you're trying to make a purchase online and everything goes all crazy haywire. You're like, what the F? And it doesn't go through and it charges you anyway, and you can't get your money back. You know, that kind of stupid stuff that happens, that psychic attack. Like, the fabric of this reality is always testing you. So that's why you really want to develop a sense of equanimity and not just be so triggered all the time when you're tested. You have to have some sort of self-mastery. So you just understand that it will almost always happen. It will happen less egregiously when you have a high vibration, and you will be able to weather the storm more easily. And the biggest thing is you're trying to find yourself again. You're trying to love yourself again. And if you really did love yourself, then you'd have good boundaries. Okay. Thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.